afternoon's presentation, I'm going to be talking about the Evaporative Demand Drought Index. So if you like this talk, please come back this afternoon. I also have surprises for you since it is the last talk, because David Creary talked about how important it is for the last speaker to be fantastic. So I'm going to work on that. So let me quick show you a couple things really quick here. All right. All right, well, first of all, my name is Eric Evenson. I'm with the National Weather Service in Burlington, Vermont. I'm also on the Fire Science Working Team. I'm the liaison for the Weather Service. And I'm also an incident meteorologist, or IMET. And so if any of you are not familiar with what an IMET is, I provide on-site weather support at large incidents. So I work with the fire crews, work very closely with the fire behavior analysts and the incident management team to provide weather support so that they can plan for their day. And back in about 2012, the whole planning aspect with the incident management team became more and more important, and planning not just for the day's activities or the next day's activities, but several days out. And so one of the IMETs came up with this idea of a fire weather matrix that showed critical weather conditions that impact the fire situation, and looking out several days in advance so that the incident management team can start to plan for something that might be coming down the road. We're finding out that there's utility in that, not only at large incidents, but also at local offices for any sort of prescribed burning or any sort of fire planning that the local offices within the compact area and the Weather Service are. And actually, Pest is a good word for this week, because Brian Norwood from New Hampshire has been pestering me since about 2013 about the fire weather matrix, because he and the crew went down on a fire in Georgia, and the IMET was showing the matrix and said, oh my gosh, I understand this. This all makes sense. Can I get this in my local area where I could just call up a fire weather matrix and see what it's looking like for my area to see, do I have to be worried about temperature, humidity, winds, and those types of elements. So I've been working on this for a while, and we've finally gotten to the point where we're actually this project is going to start this year. I've been working with the Weather Service focal points within the compact area. Sorry, Canada, it's only going to be a states thing, where we can make this, how this works, and I know it's kind of hard to see. So if I'm on an incident, basically we're forecasting out 6 days, critical things, cloud cover, precipitation, temperature, humidity, wind, and any other variables. And this is actually an Excel spreadsheet that we do at an incident. And then what we do is we find out what the thresholds are. What is critical to that particular incident that might have an impact on fire operations? So we figure out what those thresholds are, and then we go ahead and in Excel spreadsheet you can do conditional rules behind the scenes so that we can colorize these critical values. So it's a simple green, yellow, red scenario. If you see a lot of green on there, there's probably not too much you need to be concerned with. You start seeing yellow and reds, now you have to start to worry. When you see multiple columns that are all in red, those are critical burning days, critical fire weather conditions. So we work very closely with the incident management team, the fire behavior analyst, figure out what those thresholds are, and then we go ahead, and this is all kind of hand done. We plug in the numbers, and then with the rules that we have, it spits out a matrix. That 4 p.m. planning meeting that we do with the incident management team, they want this up on the board. That they can't wait to see this, to see, are they going to have to start changing their operations? Are they going to have to start calling in more resources? So they love this tool. We also use it sometimes at the morning briefings, and again, a lot of fire people and fire crews can understand this and see. And it's not so much the actual numbers, how low the humidity might be, but just the idea of the number of elements that are showing up in these critical levels. So what we've gone ahead and done is, thanks to the Weather Service in Salt Lake City, they've been playing around with this with an online version. And so right now, like I said, when we go to a fire, we're basically doing a lot of hand manipulation in this. Well, for some of you who may not know, the Weather Service in our forecast areas, we use a gridded database of weather information. So we have thousands of grid points within our area that if you click on one of those grid points, you get a specific forecast for that exact location. We used to do big zones or counties. Now it's, if you need a specific location, you're going to do a prescribed burn, you can actually click on a map and get weather information for that specific location. So the Weather Service in Salt Lake started this up, and they allowed us to have the code for it, and then I'm going to be working in the next coming months with the Weather Service focal points within the compact area. They're all on board. Our regional program manager is also on board with this project. I know Brian's on board, right? Yes. Okay, good. And so, you know, we do spot forecasts. We do fire weather planning forecasts. This is just a tool, all right? This is not to say, you go click on this, get some other information, and you're good to go. Communication is still the most important thing that we have with the fire community within the Weather Service. I used to work in Boise, Idaho, and we were right at the NIFC Center, and it's just the whole fire community and the weather community are so connected. So we love that communication. So this tool that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to do a little simple demonstration. Be curious to see, hopefully it works. The server was down for a little bit this morning. But basically, again, this is something that if you're looking at an area in your particular district that you might want to do a spot, or you just want to see what the weather's like, you'll be able to go to this, click on your location, and get a fire weather matrix that is more focused on the fire aspect. There are other elements such as lightning activity level, things such as Haynes index, so it is definitely geared a little bit more towards the fire community. And again, you may have plans to do some burning 5 days from now. You start seeing some yellows and reds. You may want to decide, hey, let me call the Weather Service and see what they're thinking on this. But it's just a tool that can help start a conversation with where we're headed with the weather conditions. So let me see if I can get this. Fingers crossed. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is an Apple computer, and I'm not the best at this, but so I'm going to try to move it up and there. Oh, here we go. I'm just trying to move it up and down. Well, okay, let's start with this. On the left-hand side, oh, there we go. Sorry. It's a right-handed computer, and I'm left-handed, so that's the problem. All right, Ben, you need to help me out here. Sorry about that. I just want to zoom in on that map. So basically, each office has their own little forecast area, and all you have to do is you'll just click on a map, and then I'll show you what happens. I'm just going to pick a spot here. And on the right-hand side, you will then get you can zoom in on that map, so you can get very detailed. You can add a latitude and longitude for a particular point. So here I selected a point near East Hardwick, Vermont. And then on the right-hand side here, you can see the 6-day fire weather matrix. The data is taken right from our all right, Ben, I need your help. I just need to go right. Perfect. Typically, I am more competent, but again, I think it's that whiskey bottle I keep looking over at. So this, for that particular point, this is what you would get. Lightning activity level, minimum humidity values, max wind gust, wind direction, Haynes temperature, humidity, Haynes index, probability of precipitation. So again, we're seeing in this particular case over the next 6 days, nothing really kind of jumps out. And right below this map are the thresholds that this is where the Weather Service and our user community is going to have to work together to set what those thresholds are. Most of us use relative humidity less than 30% is kind of considered our red flag criteria. So you could set that as your yellow, and then less than 20%, let's say you could set that as your red. This is what the focal points will be doing, working with the local fire communities. But again, where we would see trends, boxes starting to go yellow, starting to go red, that's always just, it really is an attention getter. And that's a lot of times with weather, and you'll hear this in my talk this afternoon about signals and things that kind of just jump out at you that make you want to dig a little deeper into the data. So again, this is essentially the fire weather matrix. We put all of our effort into the gridded database in terms of the data, the meteorological information. So there's a human element into the data, but then when you click on this point, it's whatever's in the grids comes out in there. On a fire, we can manipulate that data. Here, this is just raw data. So again, you know, sometimes, I know I always forecast perfectly. I don't know about some of the other people, but no, actually I take that back. I can think of many events, but it's just a starting point to dig a little deeper and to give us a phone call. And sometimes we'll give you folks a phone call if we're starting to see things 5, 6 days from now that we know you want to do some prescribed burning. And you can go to this and see, okay, now I understand what they're talking about, why they're concerned about this upcoming event. It's just a great, when they go on fires, if you ever want to grab anyone's attention at the morning briefing, you might have 500 people standing out there. It's 28 degrees in western Montana, everybody's cold, they got their little cup of coffee, they're barely awake. If I walk up there as an IMAT and they say, it's a heads up day today, everybody pops their heads up because they're not looking at the incident action plan anymore and they're paying attention. And to me, I see part of this as that kind of heads up day mentality where it's just to kind of grab your attention on this. So that's kind of just what I wanted to really show you. Again, we're finally gotten to this point, which is really exciting. And so I'm going to work with the focal points over the next couple of months. They'll work with a lot of the user community, and we can start to get this online. We're going to be the first ones in the Eastern region to kind of test this out and see how it goes. And hopefully next year we'll have a better report to see how everything's going. That's kind of all I've got for this particular section. If anyone has any questions at all. Yeah, Brian.
Brian, for your gridded weather, how much can you dial down? Square kilometer, square mile, something less than that?
2.5.
2.5.
We're 2.5 kilometers. Those grid points are 2.5 kilometers. So it is a pretty good resolution.
Who can see that gridded weather? Is that public facing at all, or is it fire community, or community?
No, the public right now, like if you go to weather.gov/Burlington, let's say you go to our website, every office has a map. You click on that map, it's called the point and click forecast. And it spits out a lot of that information. That's the same database as this. It's just that point and click for the public doesn't have any color coding on it. It doesn't have anything related to, say, the Haynes Index or more fire weather specific elements. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
How long have we had that kind of 2.5 kilometer data set? And are those data historically available?
Yeah, we've had it for quite some time, 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah, and the nice thing is, we used to just sit at a computer, type up, look at weather data, type up the forecast. Now, we put all of our meteorological thinking into this database, because now, for example, we're doing aviation products, fire weather products, hydrologic products, recreational products, a wide variety. And there's so many user communities that say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. We can give them standard stuff, but here's the beauty is, you can go, I don't know the exact site location, you can actually go and grab the gridded data. And if you wanted to write a program that says, over the next 7 days, query the database, and whenever it hits 80 degrees, put a smiley face on my computer. you have full control of that
And I
database.
could do that historically as well?
I don't know do you know how far back it goes? I don't,
We don't say the database very far back.
yeah, it's not, you wouldn't, because then that's all forecast data.
I could
Is
ask
it
you to
nec-
do it for me though, right?
We could look back, yes.
For a bottle of whiskey.
Are you on that list? You bet. No more bids for you. Yeah. No, I mean, you can communicate with your local weather service office. You're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I'm in Albany, but
Oh, okay.
responsible for the whole state.
Right. But no, we can look back. There's other data sources that you can look back at the meteorological aspects of a particular event or day that we can get some information that way. But this is more of a forecast database, so we wouldn't, it doesn't necessarily, it's a forecast. It may not be totally accurate, but there are other tools out there to look at past historical weather data.
Well, you probably noticed that New York is like the bullseye for exotic invasive species. And what we know about those exotic invasive species, some of their rates of dispersal and their spread rate, although most of them are human assisted, there is climate data that we could use too, just to prioritize our survey, detection, mitigation, that kind of thing. Having a tool like this. Learn something.
And this tool, it's a good point, is only, if you notice, it's mostly weather elements. It doesn't take into account soil moisture, fuels, things like that. That's where, again, it's so important to communicate. We can provide you with the information weather-wise, but obviously you have days where the weather's critical, fire weather, but the fuels might not be dry enough to do any burning, and also vice versa. So there is not a fuels component in this. This is just the weather part. Again, another good reason to want to communicate on that situation.
Eric?
Yes?
So as an example of this, we partnered a little bit with Maine Forest Service and Rainwise. We gave Rainwise access to this database, and then they feed it into all of their observation platforms that they have across Maine, and they actually come up with like a daily fire danger rate, marrying the database with the forecast with the observation
Oh,
tool.
okay. I knew they were pumping in weather data. I didn't know where it came from.
Yeah,
So,
we worked with Wayne Burnett, and we told him how to decode the database here, and it worked out pretty well, I think.
Oh, Mary.
So when you do the point and click though, that's associated with a RAW station that's within 2 kilometers of where you click, or that's not necessarily?
That's just any location that you want. For like a public forecast, anywhere that you click in there gives you the forecast for that particular location. It doesn't have to be tied to a RAW station.
So what's generating that? If there's no RAW station where you click, where is that data?
Are you talking about like the NFDRS forecast?
Well, I mean, like you're getting the RH, right, and wind and stuff, so if where you click there isn't a station, where is that data coming from?
Well, this is all forecast information. This is us forecasting what those conditions are going to be. It's not observed data. We're looking at the data, we're looking to see what the current conditions are. We're then looking to see what some of the forecast data looks like and to see, yep, it looks like they've got a handle on how low the humidities are. A lot of the models here never go as low on the humidities as they should. So that's where we go into the database. We make adjustments based on the current conditions and then allow that to spread forward in our forecast.
Just a comment there. I know Pennsylvania has had some challenges doing prescribed burns in the serpentine barrens, and that's an example of where, the particular geography generates a microclimate. It's not always captured by forecasts, but having on-the-ground observations.
Right, and like in the morning, we do the fire weather planning forecast, which is a much larger area. And then the spot forecast is, we use that gridded data point for wherever your burn is. And that's kind of the same idea with this matrix. It's going down to that one grid point to try to give you some sort of representation of what it looks like forecast-wise at that location.
This is, I just want to make, this is based on the same thing as the weather activity planner, right? So it's just got pre-populated values, is that to color it?
Yeah, it's the same idea.
Okay.
when I mentioned about you could query the database and say, you know, show me the days where it's gonna be 80 degrees, that's what's called the weather. I don't use it that much, but
It's super handy for planning prescribed fire.
yeah, there's a variety of tools. It doesn't give you the color coding, but it's just another way to sample. Are there any days coming up where the relative humidity is less than 30%? And that's another tool that you can utilize. So bottom line, we've got a lot of tools that we can offer you to show you, what's there for your prescribed burn.
Eric, I just wanted to add real quick, for those who don't know me, I'm the fire weather focal point at the Boston office, and I think this is gonna be a great tool, but what I tell the people I work with is, and Eric mentioned, is always to communicate with us too. Obviously in southern New England, we have a lot of coastal areas, and the weather conditions can vary greatly from, say, 2 miles inland because of the sea breeze, when a lot of burning's going on in April and May. So it's always good to communicate with us too and use that as a tool because, conditions can be quite different a few miles inland or, on the water versus further inland. So they can be changing throughout the day too. So giving us that call, communicating is really important.
There's those 4 quick deploy RAWs within the compact area. And there's been situations where people will set them up a couple of days in advance. That data gets uploaded to RAW, or where we can see it at NIPSI, and we can monitor for a couple of days to see what the weather conditions are. So, and that, what Hayden was speaking of, we can start to pick up on those finer details that might be when you're in a unique location dealing with a sea breeze or any sort of steep terrain. And that can help us with these remote points that, might not necessarily be the most representative, but now we've got some conditions we can actually look at to see what's going on. All right, thanks for your time. We'll see you this afternoon, hopefully, and I've got some goodies.